We've got this.
We have to.
Hello, Facebook world. Thank you so much for joining. It has been quite the challenge to get here to you guys all today. And so first and foremost, thank you, Amber and Brough, for having some technical awareness and understanding, because had it been me in charge of all this nonsense, we wouldn't have been doing it today.
No.
It's a challenge. So I'd like to welcome our guest today, Brough Perkins, who hails out of Barrie, Ontario. He is a psychic medium, an evidential medium, I might add, who has his own show on Kojiko. It's called the ARC, the
Afterlife Research Center. That's right.
Afterlife Research Center.
Love it.
Brough has been seen on places like MTV back in the day, where he has.
We know I'm a washed-up has-been.
He's
I'm at the top, and I'm down at Kojiko now. Now I'm live, on, no less.
Well, we're just super grateful that you came to join us today. And I should add, this is brought to you by Giant TV, Niagara. And I also need to add, everybody, full disclosure, that I do have my grandchild here today. So he may or may not pop on the screen at some point. And I apologize in advance if you guys laughing at me right now. He's like, yeah, maybe. So, Brough, who is with us today, because Brough and I had, I had been watching a video on TV, like online, and it disturbed me to the point where, you know, Brough and I are friends, and Amber and I are friends, and I zapped them both this email and went, can you believe this nonsense? And that's where the idea for the show came to be. We're not going to finger point at who the person was, but it was a...
No, I won't. I'm just kidding. I actually don't know who the person was. I watched it.
Yeah, I don't know. It just popped up on my screen out of nowhere. I didn't go looking for it. And it's all about tapping into people's fears and overwhelms to get them to follow and perhaps even buy into their spiritual practice. Would you guys agree with me on that one?
Yeah.
You know,
Sorry, go ahead, Amber.
Sorry, Brough. I was just going to say, the reason I was intrigued to join this conversation with you both is because part of my mission in life is to not ever try to make anybody believe in anything or change their perspective. It is just basically for me to be able to break down some of those barriers from, you know, years before, where everyone who's sitting here who is intuitive and using these abilities, whether it's professional or for their own personal life, you know, we're not sitting in a dark closet with the, you know, in the complete dark, dressed with the bandanas and the crystal balls. And I mean, the people, it's just the perception. Well, you do have a bandana. Yes, but that's okay. But the point is that, you know, a lot of times, and I don't know about you, Brough or Liz, but the clients will come in and say to me, "You're not what I was expecting." And I kind of laugh and I think, and then I say, "Oh, what were you expecting?" And then they kind of went along saying whatever their belief system was, based on whether it was media or generational belief systems. And it was like, whoa, no, I'm just me. Just me. So yeah, that's why I was intrigued about this, is because, you know, there might be people that are not doing evidential intuitive readings or evidential mediumship, and I think that's what I really appreciate about Brough and Liz. You guys are doing that, and that's what I offer as well.
Well, thanks. What was interesting about the video was it's one of these, yet another one of these channelers on YouTube who will come out and do some kind of video about the goings on in the world and make a few predictions, often flimsy ones. And sometimes you'll even find a couple of these channelers who bring through a famous person like Elvis or Hitler, and or you know, you name it, whoever's died. but they never bring up any kind of information that's so deeply personal to that person, and also that the public wouldn't know, that their family could verify. So when you say evidential medium, what I do in my work is I sit with complete strangers who come in and they write their questions down before they come to me, and they don't show me what their questions are. And then I do the reading, and they tell me time and again throughout the process of the reading, the questions they wrote are answered in the order that they wrote them. It's very creepy. And furthermore, the dead come through, and when I have clients who you can see on my YouTube channel with the readings I do of people who have lost their children or their spouses or their parents, they come through with their names and other details that you can verify. But these channelers on YouTube, oftentimes there's nothing that's verifiable. They're just spouting out sort of trite and using a lot of buzzwords like the Illuminati and 5D and God, it's just so irritating to me. What's interesting though is that, well, the reason, first of all, that it's irritating to me, it's like, get off my team because you're making this thing look cheap. And the second reason that's interesting to me is that I had a discussion with a good friend of mine about this very topic, not more than 16 hours before Liz contacted me about this thing. So that's a very interesting synchronicity, I think.
Yes. Absolutely. Right, Liz? Like, that's crazy. Like, he has this conversation and you contact him and all of it kind of seems to be flowing.
Well, what's so weird about this is I typically do not feed into that world, that the underbelly of the internet, or what do they call it, the dark web. I don't feed into it. I'm not interested in somebody else's opinions or whatever, but this one struck me. For some reason, I felt everything compelled to watch it. And she was very credible sounding. She had a couple of hits, so it would create that, where she had a couple of hits of things that she had predicted, which would create that level of trust. But it was the spreading of fear. And like you had mentioned, bro, the not being able to validate what she's saying. It's conjecture. It's not real. Some of the things that were stated in this video, which just blew my mind, was that heads of state like Obama and his wife were executed, and they've recreated body doubles to take over for them. Just the mind-numbing awareness that people are buying this.
So wouldn't it be hilarious if that's the one thing that was true that she said?
Well, and I have to let you know, like, Liz, you forwarded this to me, and I was having trouble kind of like getting involved in watching it, and so I haven't actually watched the whole thing. So I won't be able to comment on that specific. That's why I'm, able to be what can we communicate about as a whole. But yeah, interestingly enough, maybe I'll end up watching it, but it is the fear. And that's why I don't bother. Yeah. Well, this is why, part of what I do in my practice, and you guys can comment about it, is, I often say what you're going to receive as a message, you're going to receive for your highest good, because I work out of the light for the intention of making your human experience as authentic and as passionate, filled with purpose as possible. As you're willing to also cooperate and put your efforts back in, that's what my goal is for you or whoever comes across my path. So I often say, like, I'm not going to tell you or answer things that are going to feed into the fear-based thing. Is someone going to die? I don't get that information because I've asked my guides not to give it to me, because as you guys know, that could be an interpretation as well. To me, death also means rebirth. So I could get a yes to that question, and it totally means he's starting a new job, or there's a birth of a baby coming into the family. So I will never feed into those types of things that will cause somebody to leave here saying, she said this. As much as I can control their perception anyways, like as much as I can help not having that word spread.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, I'm curious about something, what you gals think about the fact that this individual that we're talking about has a tremendously larger amount of followers than we do, all of us combined.
Yes. I noticed that. Yeah. And you know what? It's interesting. Is it because people are in a fear-based, are those people in a fear-based state, and that is helping them feed that fear? Like they need to be validated that they're in this fear.
When we have a society that is kind of hooked on drama, because let's face it, we are hungry for the inside scoop. And when we can't rationalize it, I think this is the only way I can sort of understand this happening this way. When we can't rationalize something like a pandemic, we've never experienced it before. We become fearful about things that we don't know. We don't know the outcome. We become fearful. And these people come in and they play on those fears. And what it does is it boosts their ratings. I mean, you and I and Brough can watch it and go, wow, are people really, really buying this? It's not factual. But when you look at how the way the world's kind of turned, we're just looking for drama. There needs to be some kind of drama. We're like, next drama, please. Next, please. It reminds me of a Monty Python skit. I'd like to purchase a drama, please. You know, like it's ridiculous. However, saying that, when you're choosing somebody like one of us three or somebody in the industry, you have to look at, look first and foremost at energetically how you're feeling towards that person. Do you feel calm and collected and, you know, this is like, this person is going to serve me? The way they speak, the tone of their voice, whatever, is that going to draw, is that going to feel good to you? I used to do the psychic fairs, and I'm not like, not everybody at a psychic fair is a great psychic. Okay, we all know that. But I took it very seriously. It was me presenting. I was representing all other psychics when I was there. I was hardworking, doing my job, trying to fit in as many people as I could. It was also to build my name, of course. But there were these women there at the one fair in Toronto who were undercharging by like a ridiculous amount. And it didn't, like, again, it didn't matter. To each their own. You charge what you charge. But what they were doing was they were getting people to come in at this really cheap rate, and then they were telling them that they were cursed. And in order to alleviate the curse, you need to now pay me $350 to release that curse. People were paying it. This is the part that infuriated me. And when I found out it was going on, I went straight to the people that were running the place, and they shut that down immediately. But it was all those people that had been taken advantage of in the meantime. That reflects poorly on us. We're part of the same industry, and that reflects poorly on us. So it infuriates me that way, just like this gal on this video, and I'm sure hundreds of others that are behaving badly. Can I help you, baby?
Okay, so I've given some thought about this. Look at this little munchkin. What's his name again?
Say hi, Warren. Say hi to everybody.
Hi, Warren.
You can play with Emma stones. Absolutely. That's for you to play. Loves the crystals.
As I was saying, I was thinking about this, and this is a conversation that I had with my friend who was also interested in showing me these sorts of channelers who don't do evidential work and often play on fear. I call it the fast food of our industry. You know, it's like if you want to say that you and I are something either Montana's or above, I'm probably going to be a keg mansion, the keg, a good steak, a corporate steak. I think I look like a corporate steak. I look like I work at the keg. I look like I manage the keg, frankly. But the fast food psychics, the McDonald's, the Burger King psychics, they're the people who, like Liz, you're talking about, maybe they even have a little bit of a gift by luck or fluke, because when you work with so many people, but they're needing to fill their quotas. They're needing to to sell some kind of curse to manipulate people into bringing them money. Someone asked me why psychics charge so much money. And I said, you have to think about the fact that we don't have a corporation backing us up. We have to pay for our own health care. We have to pay for everything out of pocket. We have a high turnover rate. It's not like our clients come to us every week. You've got to be constantly generating new clients. It's not an easy field of work to succeed in. And those that are successful in this are successful for a reason, because they have a gift. But these people who use fear and say that you have a curse, and only they can get rid of it, that is because they don't have a gift. They're actually playing on people's fears, and people buy into that because people are lazy. They don't want to have to do homework. They don't want to have to do inner work. And they want all of the problems in their life to be the fault of some external force. And if someone says, I have the power to get rid of that force and your life will be better, well, that's a lot easier than actually saying, hey, your father left your mother when you were 12. You had to help raise your 3 siblings. That's why the men you pick are always babies. Maybe you should go to a therapist. That's the level of work at which I function. And it's not for everybody. Some people, like, look, there's a reason why my office has pillows on the wall, because I deal with tough shit. So we need to make it comfortable for people, and we need to get down to the core of the issue. And it's this laziness of people to not really want to do the homework that makes them buy into that bull crap, frankly. And by the way, I actually charge people $360 to tell them they don't have a curse. So FYI.
Oh gosh. You know, I had this conversation with a client of mine because I had heard that on, I'm thinking it was Instagram. It was one of the social media platforms. I want to say Instagram. And she was getting, don't quote me on how many times, but it was more than one time on a regular occasion since she started Instagram, where she's been getting these inboxes or personal messages or DMs or whatever you call them, to say she has been cursed. And if you just send me 20 bucks, 100 bucks, 1,000 bucks, they'll remove the curse. Now, I don't know how they would find, this is my thought process, right? How do you automatically go through a social media platform like that and find somebody and target them and say, you are cursed, and be able to connect to them on such a way with just sending a message to their inbox to say, send me money and I'll remove the curse? Well, you know, anybody who's having a hard time in their physical life, which is all of us at one point or another, because that's what we're here for, how could we not maybe in that moment, maybe believe in that vulnerable moment that we're cursed because A, B, C, and D has just happened. I lost my job. I don't have any money. My husband's stressed. Like, whatever it is, someone eventually is going to believe that they're cursed because they have all of these horrible things going on in their life. And they are going to pay that money. And then they're going to pay that money, and then they're going to get cursed again and again and again, apparently, so that they have more money to give to them to remove the curse. So that was my extent of understanding that people are out there doing that to get money from people to remove a curse that somebody may not know different and may believe they're cursed, especially in love. That's what I seem to be hearing a lot about. Like, so it's like single women or single men. Those are the ones that are getting the message saying, oh, you're cursed in love. You're never going to find a relationship. And of course, that's devastating to feel like you may never find a relationship if that's what their heart is desiring. Mm-hmm. So there are those types of people out there. And what I always say, the analogy to me is just like in any industry, lawyers or mechanics or doctors, there are a select few of each of those people in any industry that will give the whole industry a bad name, or police or whatever. And this is no different. This is no different. We're doing the work that's from the highest good to help people live their passion and purpose. And then there's people out there on the dark side.
Well, this is where I'll push back just a little bit, but I actually agree with you in the whole. I don't think our industry is, I take your point when you say every industry has quacks, but you see, because our industry isn't regulated the way that the medical industry is, like, we wouldn't allow a person without a medical degree to set up a clinic and practice medicine. You have to have that's illegal. You have to have a medical degree to do that. Mm-hmm. It's not to say that there haven't been people who have done that. That's something that we shut down pretty quick. But the psychic field is not regulated at all. It's not recognized in the academic world. as a thing. But psychology itself took a very long time to be recognized as a legitimate form of science. So there's a joke running in the university that the psychology department it's all in your head, that it's not a real science. And the thing is, with psychic ability, if we can get this institutionalized and regulated where people have to get licensing to practice, we are going to weed out a lot of the fakes, and we're going to also help the public be educated on how to find good ones. And when I was younger, I started out thinking, the work speaks for itself. I mean, yeah, there's fakes out there, but if you're doing great work, the people are going to come to you. And that's for the most part true. But again, we've run into this problem where there are so many people who don't know anything about psychic ability, the paranormal, or spirituality. They're very naive to it. They are looking for someone to tell them that their problems are someone else's fault or something else's fault. And that gives them a temporary feeling of relief and vindication. But long term, even medium term, it doesn't really solve anything for them. And so anyone who really comes to a genuine psychic, and I've gone to a few myself because I can't read myself, psychics always point back into you and say, here's where you're missing this little piece. Here's where you have to do the work there. And then if you do all this, your life will change. That's why I have the saying, which is the aim of the work is to undo the past in the present, setting the future free. So you're not reliving the same cycles over and over again. That's what I find in my practice often. So any thoughts, gals? I mean,
that's beautiful. Like, I think at the end of the day, you have spiritually intelligent people who work in the industry. They're spiritually intelligent and they recognize how to serve souls for their highest, best good. And then you have spiritually defunct people who are not spiritually emotional, who are literally, how do I get my next dollar? Or it's the attention that I get because like that person had 54,000 views on that video, I might add. So that's a ton of attention. All of a sudden that's feeding the ego. So if your psychic or a medium is telling you stuff that is unbelievable, like for example, the Obamas have been assassinated and have been replaced with drones by the Illuminati. Like stuff like that's fantastical things. If that's happening, chances are you're going to have an initial, what? Your head's going to go, what? What did you just say? Mm-hmm. Trust that initial vibe. Even if it seems like it could be credible on some level, maybe, just maybe they are dead and they have been replaced. It's not credible. And anybody who's playing or spewing that garbage is playing with your feelings and emotions, and they're hoping to get money from you for nothing. And that is what we need to end in this, in the world. And I agree with you, bro. We need some kind of regulation. Are we the ones to do it? I don't know. I love, like Amber's got the Halo Awards where it's voting for the psychic mediums by the people. So that gives credibility immediately. Like you had 14,000 votes last year.
For the first year. It's a testimonial. And this is what people were wanting to, that they enjoyed about that, was that it is a good testimonial for their work. So you're not going to get the votes if you didn't have a positive experience. No one's going to sit and vote over and over and over for somebody to get them to win if they didn't do something for them in return, right? Like they didn't give that. But it's the truth, because this is what Liz and I were talking about the other day, was that I had said we are not regulated. And just to even further go back on what you're saying, bro, is that it's true. Not so long ago, people used to call psychologists and social workers and psychiatrists quacks because they didn't believe in what they could do as well. Because it is something that, unless the person is going to have a personal accountability towards their own healing, whether it's spiritual, physical, emotional, whatever, you can only get them to a certain point with your experience and education and your, awareness of something before they have to also go inward and say, I no longer want this to happen. I no longer want to be part of this cycle or the circle of something bad. I want to make a change. So I say that all the time. Look, massage therapists fall into the same thing. People were like, oh yeah, go for a massage. Yeah, it's going to help me in any way, right? Well, now massage therapists are regulated. Social workers are regulated. So it isn't going to be far off before people in our industry, because it is a lot of spiritual counseling that we're doing. It's not a lot of, here, give me, it's a running joke, which isn't even funny to me, is like, give me the lottery numbers. Are you, like,
lottery numbers.
Okay, well, you're in the wrong spot. If you're coming to me to give you lottery numbers, you're in the wrong place. And there's nothing wrong if that's what somebody wants to do for entertainment purposes. But the people that are attracted to us will be attracted to us because they're ready to do their work. They're ready to start to see what we could change inside. Like if I'm going to somebody, I would be like, okay, where am I not perceiving something, or where am I lacking, or where can I have an awareness of something, and then apply those techniques to get to have the change. It is all about working within.
Can I say something to the lottery point that you made? Because it's just an interesting aside, which is that I actually have a friend who I've interviewed on my show several times, Tim Schultz, who I met because he went on a TV program called How the Lottery Changed My Life. He was 21 years old and he won something like $26 million. And he won it on a Powerball in the States. He was one of the youngest Powerball winners at the time. This was in the very early 2000s. I think it was 2001. And what led him to play the lottery was he was working in a gas station. His life wasn't going very well. And he had lost his apartment. He literally was sleeping on the gas station bathroom floor this night. He had a dream.
Oh, geez.
He had won the lottery. The dream was so realistic that it took about 4 hours for it to wear off. He actually thought he had won when he woke up. It was that realistic. And he had quit his job that day at the gas station, took a quick pick, went out, got drunk with friends, played poker that night, said, I got the winning ticket in my pocket, boys. He won every hand that night.
Wow.
Got to his parents' house, passed out, drunk. Next day, his parents saw in the paper that someone from his gas station had won, and they couldn't find the ticket for a while, like 6 days or something, found the ticket, he won. So he'd had a psychic experience, and his dream actually caused him. It led him to play the lottery at his gas station. It was a random thing. So he and I have talked a lot about this, and psychic ability is a passive thing. It's not something we can control. I can't choose what I see.
Right. That's
right. Like, I'm going to win the lottery tomorrow. It just was meant for him to happen. And this is where Tim and I have come to on the theory of, with predictions, is it that you have a premonition because you're supposed to make it happen, or do you have a premonition because it is written? And I think the reason we don't see the lottery often is because very few people win it. Give me someone who's meant to win it and I'll see it for them.
That 100%.
Yeah. And I have a friend who won $1 million and they had the insight prior to winning it. He was like, I'm just going to win the lottery. I just know I'm going to win it.
I say the same thing about me. I have always, on our first date with my husband and I's first date, I said to him, I'm going to win money. I am going to win it. Not like in some way, shape, or form, I'm going to win money. And it's just like, I don't know when, I just know I'm going to. And I just have that belief system. But it's not for everybody. And that's why I'm saying, like, if you're coming to me for that, if that's what your main focus is, you're not trying to do the work to try to get you to where that, like, you still have to get to a certain space in your life. You still have to work, you still have to earn money, you still have to do the motions of your life before you get to where maybe that moment is. A few years back, it was a 94-year-old man who won the lottery. Well, now everybody was up in arms because this elderly gentleman won money, and like, what does he need with it? Well, why are we trying to say what does he need with it? Because this was his purpose, or this was what he was entitled to do based on his path. But I agree to that. I agree that if you're meant to have that lesson or that awareness of finances, and this is how you're getting there, then yes, potentially pay attention to your insights, pay attention to your gut instinct. And of course, again, you have to make a choice to play in order to get to that space where you're going to win.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, like, Brough strikes me as, when I first, I interviewed Brough for another show that I did. And when I was doing my research on him, I discovered that not only is he evidential, but he actually has submitted himself to some serious testing, like by professional testing people. So your abilities have been actually tested by scientific.
Verified. I subjected myself to a 2-year study with a criminologist who works for the government, and of came a book called Medium 7, where she basically sent people into me undercover. They to me looked like normal clients, but they were actually working for her, and they had recorded their readings. And right after their reading, she would interview them and score level of accuracy on statements, and then she'd interview them again a year later and play the recording of their reading to the person again, and then score again, because some of the predictions would come true, you see.
Right.
And statistically speaking, I scored 79% accurate, which is something in the ballpark of 1 trillion to 1 odds. It's like lottery level stuff. But Russell Targ, who's a laser physicist who was one of the founders of the remote viewing program, the Stargate program for the United States government, which was recently declassified. They actually had psychics spying on Russia for 20 years. And these psychics could do amazing things, and people were being trained to be able to remote view. And remote viewing, by the way, is just another word. It's just a government-friendly word for psychic ability. And Russell says, this is the laser physicist, he says, if your goal is to read the serial number on a dollar bill, and that's what you think psychic ability is, you're going to find that there is no psychic ability. But if your goal is to see nuclear submarines in Russia, you're going to find out that there's psychic ability. And it's a very interesting statement. And what I came to understand was genuine psychic ability will see the life-changing stuff. And now you can make the argument that the lottery is life-changing, but one might also say that lives are either meant to be changed in certain ways or not. There's a choreography before we get here. Our soul plans the life we're meant to lead. And if you're not meant to win that lottery, there's nothing you can do about it. So, you know, just to further the point, it's like we have to understand how psychic ability works properly before we can weed out the charlatans and the fakes. And I'll tell you something. I mean, these people who go on live and talk about channeling Elvis and talk about reptilians and how the Obamas are now drones and all this and that, that does no good for anybody. And that's not life-altering information. And in fact, I've looked into this sort of Illuminati conspiracy theory stuff, and it always leads back to the idea that there is an evil force of demons who are trying to take control of the world. And then I ask all the experts, why? Why do these demons want to control the world? Well, because they feed off of our soul energy. And I said, well, that's interesting. That's an interesting thought, because feeding, nourishment, eating, it's a biological function. In spirit, you don't need to sustain yourself. You don't have a body. So why would they feed? Feeding is a predatorial, animalistic, eat or be eaten kind of world. It's this sort of predatory. It's playing on primal fears of people. And in spirit, there's no consuming. There's no need for food. So it's like, why are they feeding on my soul? And well, then there's the point that I don't taste that good. So
you know what? This is true though. This makes sense. If you are allowing yourself the time to think about things, or to use your instincts, or to have an awareness to any extent, you would understand which way you're supposed to be going. And there is that sense of, you know, a human experience is very predatory. People are always trying to, you know, get over one person to get themselves higher or something. Like, a lot of people are, not everybody, a lot of people try that. And this may work for the short term, but it doesn't work for long. So even if you're getting that, you know, short-term satisfaction of doing this, you're never going to get far anyway, or it'll crash and burn. And that would be the same in anyone or anywhere. So it's the longer way around when you do things the right way. And it might take more insight. Like, even Bro, you were saying about this study. Yeah, the only way it could be an effective study is if there was follow up at some point later, because not everybody who's having an experience with a psychic or a medium will know everything that there has been said in that moment. I always say, yeah, okay, I'm not harping on this. Like, take it, because you might understand as soon as you leave, or you might not understand until you get home and tell your mother, or there might be a reason in which what I'm saying to you is important for you or someone connected to you to know, but you may not understand it today, right now, especially since in that moment, a lot of people come with preconceived ideas of what they want to have happen or what they expect based on what a psychic medium is. And they leave with a totally different, outcome. A lot of people will say that to me. I came expecting either nothing or I came expecting something else and I left with something much better. So until you've had that experience and especially allowed that time to go by, you need that time. So a good study will allow you to check back in with the person who had the reading.
I want to also add to that, Amber, so that anybody that's watching this isn't confused by what you've said, because what you're saying is right. But let me be very clear. If you're seeing a psychic and everything they've told you is not like connecting at all, and what Amber's not saying, none of it should connect. She's typically, what will happen is there'll be 1 or 2 points every once in a while in a reading that's not connecting to the person in the immediate, in the now. And I call that psychic amnesia. Or like I've been in, shows where I've been like, you've got your boyfriend John here, who's, whatever. And they're like, no, I never had a boyfriend, John. Never had a boyfriend by the name of John. And you're like, yeah, well, he's with you right now. And I can't make it up. So it's really happening. And then they'll come after the show and go, yeah, I don't know how I didn't get that. Like, that was my first boyfriend. And the one, okay, I get it. So it is, we call it, like the term I call it is psychic amnesia, but it won't be like a consistent, the entire reading will be conjecture. It will be, you'll have a sense or a feeling of connection to what they're saying. And it'll be a mixture of, usually I find the best psychics are a mixture of past, why you're there, what's caused you to get to this place, so we can clean that up and get you forward in the future stuff. At the end of the day, I mean, you have to make that decision, but I would highly recommend that anybody watching this video, if you've met a great psychic, even if it was one of us 3, give us a testimonial, because that's how people also will be able to know that we are credible. The more testimonials one gets on their validity, right? Guys, would you not agree?
Yeah.
I never really ask for them. I every once in a while I'll throw it out there on Facebook. If you've had a reading, give me a testimony, because society dictates that I have them. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Yeah, for sure. I actually have a question for you ladies. In 3, like if you could give me 3 points of what you would recommend the average person do if they're looking for a real psychic, like what are the 3 key things you want to look for? Let's say you have not had a reading with them and you don't know anyone who has had a reading with them. What would those 3 specific things about them on the surface be that would tell you that you're likely going to a real one?
Okay, so I can only tell you what my clients say to me, and typically people who find me like from random, that they're not being referred to by somebody, is they found me by happenstance. So they just happened to do a search for a psychic and my name popped up. And it was the best day, I couldn't believe that happened. And then all of a sudden I'm finding you all over the place. So that is usually a really good indicator. Your guides are going to push you towards somebody. So I don't know, Amber, do you want to give a second one?
Yeah, I feel like you're going to be energetically drawn. So Liz is saying you have that push, that guidance, that kind of getting you there. That energetic. I always tell people, I don't care who you choose to have this experience with, make sure that your energy resonates with them. Like, make sure of that, because you could go to somebody that your best friend said was amazing, but you're not jiving with that person. And therefore your experience will be down because you're not getting that connection. There's always somebody perfect for your own experience.
Mm-hmm. Mhm.
And then a third thing would be when you're with, when you initially make the connection, I think it should just be, there should be some kind of credibility. Either they have testimonials from, which can be made up as well, right? So I don't know if that could be, but when you think of testimonials through Facebook, it has to come from somebody's Facebook page. So there's some level of credibility there. So that also the caliber of, or how long they've been in the industry, like you pretty much are going to weed people out over time, I would imagine, that aren't credible. They're going to be shut down. Well, I would hope that would be the case. I don't know. I think I can't think of anything else.
I feel like the amount of work they do within the community or within the world as a whole, like there will be people that are sought out for publications or for a television, any type of media or articles or what they're doing. Like for instance, when I'm looking for somebody to work with or to ask to be a featured speaker in one of my events or to collaborate with, I'm researching them. I'm researching what do they have to offer? What publications have they created? What is their standing? Are they working in community service? Are they putting back out? I'm looking for the whole experience, not just what they can offer me as the, I guess, the ability. I want the whole experience, but that's where I'm vibrating. So I'm hoping to, connect to somebody else who vibrates at that level. So to me, and then also I feel like, the cost is important because when you are seeing somebody, and let's just use people that, for instance, who have been used by CNN, Forbes, Huffington Post. They have, acclaimed television shows, whatever. They are the people appearing on Oprah's Live Vision Tour, whatever it is. Those people have been sought out because they are already giving out the information that everybody wants to hear and that the world needs. Like, what do we need and what are you giving us? So that's important. And those types of people are giving such value that their fee will be on the higher scale. And that higher scale, again, like Bro said earlier, you're not seeing you daily, you're not seeing you weekly, you're only seeing you maybe once a year or once ever, if whatever. So to have a higher fee doesn't always necessarily mean you're connecting to the right person. But when you take everything together and add that up, it tells the story.
That's
So
right.
what I'm hearing is that that the psychic, if you're going to go to a real one, that they don't advertise generally, or even if they do, you've probably heard of them through word of mouth or through reputation alone. I agree with that. And I'm also hearing that their work or their body of work stands for more than just hanging a shingle and putting a neon sign in their window and saying psychic readings, that they're actually engaged in the community at a bigger level. I would add to it that when you go to a psychic, if they're real, they won't let you tell them why you're there. They won't let you ask questions. They need to be able to do the reading without any kind of input first. And then at the end, you can ask questions, of course. What do you think about that?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. I offer multiple services. So at the beginning, I always say, what are your goals? This is what I offer. You need to make sure we're in the right alignment with what you're here today for, but don't tell me anything. Don't tell me this person passed and this is, stop. I just want to make sure, do you know that you're here for this service? Because sometimes people are choosing and they don't know, and this is what I offer. Is this what you're coming for? But no, I don't think you should be asking. You shouldn't be asking. As a matter of fact, there is a very different way of people doing things at different worlds, right? In different countries, right? So the United States reads very different than Canada versus Britain versus Australia, New Zealand, whatever. I've noticed this as my pool of connections have becoming larger with people in this industry. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because what Bro just said, exactly defines what country you're used to being read by, because some of the professionals, let's say in Britain, are like, okay, just tell me who you want to connect with or tell me what you're doing so that I can make sure you get what you need when you're here. or versus the United States, who aren't very communicative. Like they don't really ask questions or want to know anything. They just say, blah, here's what you get. And that's that. Where in Canadian readings, and you guys tell me your experience, but seeing, you know, the top of the Canadian leaders in this industry, it is very compassionate. It's filled with empathy. And although there is that validation back where someone wants to tell the reader, oh my goodness, you just connected to my father. This is all the things that you said that are correct. It's more of a healing session versus receiving information prior to the reading.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Now, like there's a difference between asking for validation questions, right? Like, so you could say, does that make sense to you? But yeah, I agree with you that you should have no, like, tell me, I don't, the less I know about somebody, the happier I am. And I actually, since COVID started, and I do a lot of my readings, we're wanting to lean towards doing readings over the phone. I prefer not having a face in front of me, because then I'm not reading or connecting to their facial expressions, which I can be drawn into. So and the other thing is, what I started to do just before we went into COVID, was I started to turn away from the people. But I love this over the phone constantly now. It's how I read people overseas. But now I just love that I'm not seeing people face to face, because I don't read into anything. I'm completely relying on just what I'm getting, if that makes sense. I don't know if that bothers you guys.
No, I'm not bothered. I think I've done phone readings primarily for half a decade now, because I was doing people in person constantly. I've had 4 offices, one of which was in the Victorian Mansion in Toronto, on the same street, Isabella Street, that Neil Young wrote Ambulance Blues.
Oh, cool.
And I'm pretty sure I lived in the building that he wrote that in at the time. And, you know, I've switched to phone readings, and it's wonderful because you don't have to worry about the cats jumping on people.
That's true.
You know, you've got a lot of stress when and people are like, well, I prefer coming to you in person. And I'm like, well, that's great that you prefer that, but it's my goddamn house.
Yeah.
So I don't always want strangers in my house all the time. So I've actually started to see people I was going to start seeing people in person again here in the office, but the world fell apart with the pandemic. But I think this is another interesting topic, is that people think that we need to be in front of you to read you. We need to be picking it up off of your physical vibe. And it's more of the same notion of the demons who are eating our souls. It's like, well, this is such a primitive ape brain way of thinking. It's like you have to consume something to survive. That's Earth. That's not spirit. Spirit doesn't need to consume something. And the psychic remote viewers in America, we're seeing Russian submarines thousands of miles away. I mean, it's not confined to the small space.
This is the truth. And this is what I've always said. You know, I'm an empath, and you know, it's been a struggle my whole life to try to maintain that level of not picking up other people's stuff. And so, you know, my preference has always been doing a session for somebody over the phone, or by video. And because I read people from all over the world, and I have for the good part of the decade, this is something that they can receive and have that connection, because I am not, and how I explain it is, I'm not here to read your energy. So therefore, it doesn't matter if I call you from Japan or if you're sitting in my living room. I'm not here to read your energy. I read and listen to the energy that's around, and that comes no matter where you are. So I remember one client, and this person is stuck with, well, I don't really remember it very often, but like just in this context, she just was saying no to everything. Nope. This was years ago. Like, I'm going to say over at least 3 or 4 years ago. By this point, I was confused, because she wanted to come in for a medium reading, and every person I brought through, she was like, why is he here? I didn't even really know him, or I didn't like him, or I wasn't allowed to speak to him when I was living, or I didn't come to hear for this person. And I remember about 45 minutes in, after hearing nope, 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 and her energy was just very defensive, so there was nothing being received, I said to her, what are you here for? Are you here for, what are your goals? Like, what are you expecting? Like, I don't understand what you're doing here. Because at that point, I'm like, I'm investing, and you guys can attest to this, a ton of energy into trying to connect for someone. And then that person has gotten now this, I'm not telling you anything. I'm not willing to work on anything. I'm not willing to receive anything. And oh, by the way, if you think you need to ask me what I'm here for, that you mustn't know what you're doing. And I said, okay, well, that's your perception and your understanding and your limited awareness about the thing, because you don't do this every day. I'm not willing to invest any more energy in trying to work through your wall, because I have other people and other things to do with my day. Like, it was something that had only happened one time in my whole experience. And in moments like this, when we're talking about being in the same room, what I was getting was hostility. That was hostile. And that energy will allow me to say, I respect myself enough to close off to you now. So now our session is over. So there is that part to it. But I would say on the whole, everybody who has come is looking for an experience that they have had word of mouth experience over, like a testimonial, and they are coming open and willing to receive. And that is an open energy. But sitting in front of you, over the phone halfway across the world, doesn't matter. It is the same thing
that we've come across here, because now you've shared that, Amber. I'm curious. I have a story in mind, but I think we should. So Amber, you've shared that. We should share our worst client experience. All three of us.
It was rough. I had to set boundaries, bro. Like, and Liz, I had to actually be okay enough to say, what in the world? And that was outside my comfort zone. So I thank that person for giving me that minute.
Yeah.
Like that was like, all right, I had my voice and now I know, and these are my standards.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
We learned.
Lessons.
Go ahead,
Liz.
bro. What was your worst? Sure.
Okay, me too. Well, there was this gentleman who called me up. I won't say their name. Of course, it's all confidential, folks. I'm a professional.
Absolutely.
So he calls me up, and I noticed he was very curt on the phone. He was like, yep, okay, fine. And I thought, well, geez, he's really grieving. So he gets to my office, and he sits down, and I say, you've had a huge kind of death in your life, because my clients will either come for a reading about the dead or they'll come to hear about life, but they don't tell me what they're hoping for. The whole cool part about it is that I actually sense what you're here for. Like, I'm like, okay, you're here to hear about your life, or you're here because a dead person. So I get that correct. And then I go on to how this person died way too soon in life. So it's either a child or someone who died before the age of 40. Yeah, I guess, he says. I guess. Kind of. It's like, well, how could that be a kind of? You know? Long story short, it's his son who had died. At one point, he even interjects. He goes, well, what's his name if you're talking to him? Now, I had a great aunt, Helene or something, coming through. So I'm like, well, hold on. And then I get this big C. But then I think my brother-in-law's name is Christopher. So it can't be that, because that's just my own consciousness. So I say, maybe his name is Corey or Kevin. He goes, nope, it's Christopher. Completely wrong. All right. Mm-hmm. So then we go on, and at this point, I'm getting the energy that you're talking about, Amber, of this negativity. It's wearing me. This is in person too, and so now I'm doubting everything I'm seeing. So I'm like, he's not into hockey. He's not into hockey. I say. He goes, and my client goes, no, he was a star hockey player. Like, it was like the thing of his life was hockey. But why would I bring up hockey in the first place?
Exactly.
Not into it, like, specifically. Yeah. And it just came out of my mouth, and I'm just like, oh, he's not into hockey, is he? And all this and that. And at the end of it, my client refused to pay me. And he was like, you can have 1,000 great clients in a year, and then one person can just wreck your confidence. And this was really hard for me, because it's not about me being right. It's about the fact that this guy's fucking son was trying to come through.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're on television. We're on Beep. I have a Rogers show. They beat me all the time. There's a lot of half the show is beeps, actually. His son is trying to come through, and like, what are you doing here? You're disgracing your son's attempt. It's not perfect. It's not perfect, this kind of work. It's there are factors that, if you can understand what the factors are and the difficulties are. So now I learned something from that experience. I tell people when I get names, they're only first letters. I only get the initial of the name. Now the cool thing about setting it up that way is that I do actually get the full name often. But if I undersell and overdeliver, that's makes me look better. So that's how I deal with that, you know, and I've learned that. So that was my worst client that I can remember. I've had other terrible ones, but that was probably the hardest, because my heart goes out to people who have lost children. All I wanted to do was help this man. And all he did was sit there and think that I was a piece of crap the whole time.
That messes with and this is why, you know, if there's any negative vibes, it's not happening. Maybe today's not the right day, or this isn't the right match, but it will not happen this way, because I want to make sure that, you know, and you guys want to make sure this is the direction that we're headed with this, but we don't need to be in this energy, because we aren't in that energy. So we aren't going to put ourselves into it. And yeah, you know, when you lose a child, that is a horrible thing. And they probably don't want to be made where they feel like, oh God, somebody's saying something and I don't know if it's true. And it's a very confusing thing. But the energy you're putting out will affect your session. The energy you put out about, you know, being blocked or saying if you don't think that we understand that you're putting negative vibes or thoughts towards us, then you're in the wrong spot. Because we can pick it up. We understand that.
100%.
Don't piss off your psychic.
Yeah.
Don't you want a nice future? Don't make me angry. Otherwise, well.
Oh my gosh. I always say to my husband, I'm like, what are you thinking about? Because I just heard what you said. And he said, I didn't say anything. I said, not with your mouth. I heard you in your head.
We totally read the energy in the room. Yeah. Well, I can share mine with you guys, because it was a doozy. It was my first.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. And so it was literally like my first time going to Toronto and doing a party, which was a big deal for me coming from St. Catharines. It's only an hour away, but it was like, I'm going to Toronto to do a party, right? It was in the beginning for me, starting to work with the public. So I made my way there. It was a fancy schmancy apartment. I felt very much out of my league just walking in. And right away, I was shown to a little room off to the side. And I said, let's start bringing people through. And my very first girl that came through was sitting there, and like we talked about that energy thing, was very closed. And I started to go into what I saw for her, which was I saw 3 men coming into her life, and specifically that she was going to have to choose one of those men. And I said, but I'm going to go through that. And as I started to say that, she started screaming at me, like just full on verbally assaulting me. What kind of garbage psychic are you? And just like giving her to me. And I was like, I don't understand why you're mad at me. I'm telling you what I'm getting. I'm not, like, this is what it is. No, this is bullshit. And I said, you've been single for a long time, haven't you? 20 years? And she goes, yep. And I went, that's why. I immediately knew she was upset, because she had been single for 20 years. And for some chick,
I wonder why.
Right? Exactly.
No, really? Really?
To come in and say, yeah, you're going to have 3 potential relationships right back to back. It was just so far-fetched for her to believe that. But I'll tell you, she made such a production, was so loud, yelling what a garbage psychic I was, that the party outside the door had stopped and gone quiet. So everybody was listening to her yelling at me, which just like, ooh, you can imagine the feeling, right? So long story short, she leaves the room, and I'm like, she's like, well, I'm not paying you. I said, it's all right. You don't have to. It's okay. Just get out of my energy. And I was getting my stuff together, because I was expecting the host to come through and say, yeah, you can just go, right? Because she left the room and was like, you're not gonna believe this fanciful things this chick's telling me. Next thing you know, I'm gonna win the lottery. Like, she was really giving it. And the guy came in and he said, listen, I know that you're good because my friend told me that you're good. That's why you're here. Don't listen to her. Can you do me next? And I'm like, okay. Like, I had to.
Yeah, like, I guess, give me a half hour and a shot of alcohol.
Right? I had to totally compose myself. Well, the best part of this story is not even like 2 months later, 2 months goes by and my phone rings and it's this woman. And she says, hi, Liz. And I'm like, yeah. She goes, and she tells me her name from this party. And she says, you told me that I'm going to meet 3 men within the month. And I was the girl that was yelling at you at that party. I went, I know exactly who you are. Like, your name is seared in my memory for life now. And she said, well, you were right. And now I'm calling to see if you can tell me which one I'm supposed to choose because I'm dating all 3 of them. And I'm like, yes, but this time you're going to have to pay me now before we go. So I had the vindication, the validation of what I was saying. But I can tell you, when I drove home from that party, so like after I did the first guy, he's like, she's amazing. Everything she said, blah, 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 blah. You know, he validated me. And so everybody else came through. I had like 12, I think I did 12 people that night, including her. It was the conversation I had with my guides, and tell me if you guys have ever done this. I was ripping into my guides like, what did you put me in front of? What was that about? Why did I need to see that person? Like, are you trying to chip away at my confidence? Because it's already not that great. Have you guys ever had conversations like that with your guides?
Every minute of the day.
Well, you know, the thing is that this is why this show is important today, because nobody knows what we've already been learning. Like, us 3, we've already been doing this. We understand the way it works to the most part, like as what our awareness is allowed to experience. We don't have all the answers. We don't understand how all this works. We know what our abilities are and how we're relating them, and what works for me might work for you or not for you. And that's what the importance of this today is about, is how can we help you understand who you should be connecting to that's legitimate, reputable, that will give you your experience? How do you play a part in what you're willing to receive and how it's going to work out for you? And also, what do we learn as readers? And anybody out there who is, shaken by their, faith in their own intuition, we've all been there. We've all done it. This isn't unusual. But those people or those experiences gave us each something. It gave us something to be able to have to continue to persevere and go on and be better from it, or to set our boundaries, or to, know that that's not where we're resonating and we're moving over here. And so, I mean, to me, I was like, okay, what do I learn from this? What comes out of it? I just don't take well to people being rude in the first place. So to me, that's not a mediumship thing. That's just general overall. That's the way that I grew up knowing how to be, and that's how I will continue to be. So yeah, I get what you're saying, Liz. And yes, I've had those conversations where I'm like, what is that about? But it's like, what can I learn from it? And how can I now be in a situation to help others who might be in our experience, like just a little bit behind us or ahead of us and haven't had this yet? How can we educate so people are getting the most out of their intuitive experiences?
Absolutely.
Because it's not easy.
Nice. I'm just at the time here, and we are like 10 to 2. So we have, we have done a long show, and there's been a few people chiming in, but for the most part, everyone's just been listening to us. So we thank everybody.
I'm sorry, Niagara Television. I will never come on your station again. Promise.
Say never, never.
Don't say never. We will have you back. We will have you back.
We have you back. I think what we need to remember for anybody watching this, you cannot be cursed unless you allow yourself to be cursed. So that shit ain't real. Don't believe that stuff. If somebody tells you you're cursed, it's not true. If it's fantastical, or if it's not something that will ever be able to be proven by you, it's not real. Hello, Puss Puss.
So cute. Look at the eyes.
Mustache there.
Yeah.
We had lots of visitors on the show today between the
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Today has been absolutely so what we realized before while we were trying to get on for an hour was that it's the we're just entering this Mercury retrograde for the summer. So technology, and you have three very intuitive, powerful energies and auras that we're trying to connect at the same time. So us getting on and staying on and even being able to stream was amazing. So thank you guys for connecting and bringing this topic to light, because I think that if we break down the barriers of what the preconceived notions are of people in our industry, and give people the tools and allow them to know there is some accountability in their own purpose to be able to work with their own intuition, or a practitioner, a psychic, a medium, to be able to get to that space. This is what's important. This is why we're here. Share our experiences so that other people can hopefully understand them or learn from them.
Sorry, it just got quiet.
And she's back. There she is.
Lawrence. I want to shout out to Richard, and I want to shout out to my son Dalen. So thank you guys for having me, by the way. It's very nice to be here.
Yes, thanks for coming on. And yeah, we'll have you back for sure. We need to do more education around this stuff.
Exactly. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone, for watching. We love you from the Insiders and Brough Perkins.
Peace
Bye, everybody.
Be with me.
Guys.
Peace be with me more than you. Peace be with me. Thank you.
Awesome.